So people often become a race network leader without a leadership background, which can be stressful. Many have told us it's hard to stay motivated as it can be challenging and also a very isolated, lonely role. So Justin, how did you set yourself up to support yourself and your well-being when you stepped into the role?
Really interesting question. And just before I jump straight into that, I just want to say hello to everyone. Just check in as Javid's already done before to make sure you're right. And also as well, just please, whatever any of this panel says is really going to benefit you because there's some amazing panelists here. So for me, I think I was quite lucky in the role that I got elected for. It was a co-chair role, so there were two leaders, so we were able to work off each other and help support each other. So that was my former chair, Sharon Lowe. And I think for me, something around when speaking to a number of different networks, and we have 62 network leaders across the whole of the UK. Majority of those people, and Javid, you've already mentioned this yourself, do really long hours, have really busy day jobs, and actually it's, they're not getting paid to do it. They're volunteering their time. So for me, I think one of the things when I first got into the role, I didn't realize at that time how much time it would take me away from my family and friends. I was very much in a space where I wanted to be really good at the job. So I did loads of reading, I did all of the stakeholder engagement, I attended other events. And what I realized was how much that was impacting on my time. And not having time for self-care started to take a toll on me. But also as well, and this probably is what a number of network leaders and people who are on this online call know, is that when people start coming to you for advice or want to talk to you and just have that sort of sympathetic ear, taking on board those stories can also as well be quite draining. So the way that I managed to support myself was really understanding what was triggering me, what was making me feel a little bit nervous. And I think one of those things was being really clear on the time that I could actually commit in that role. So being really clear to people that if I was going to speak to them, I could only give maybe 20 minutes instead of an hour, which is what they were expecting. Being really clear, and you've mentioned this as well, if I did provide any advice or any action, I would make sure that they followed through. Because for me, like anyone else, what I don't want is someone to come to me for help. I've offered them either some of my own lived experience or things that have helped me. That person then walks away and doesn't actually take it on board, because then I get disappointed. So once again, it's knowing where my triggers lie. So I think for me is one, just in a nutshell, as they say, surround yourself with people that you trust and that care about you and can also as well spot the signs. I think there's a lot around that self-care. How much time can you truly commit to this role as a network leader without it impacting on you personally? And then finally, three, always try to keep yourself aware of what's going on. So as Alicia mentioned around mental health first aiders, there are not enough people of color who are mental health first aiders. So one straight away is that, why is that? So understand the reason why that, and then being able to articulate it. So if I'm talking about race, I can also as well talk about mental health. And a lot of this information is out there, and I would encourage anyone, once again, find out the information.
Thank you very much. As I said, this week's been very difficult for many race network leads, and I said, in your own time and using up your energy, how do you stay motivated and also look after your well-being on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, thanks so much, David. And hello, everyone. Again, great to meet you all, and really glad to be here today to share my 2 cents on well-being and staying motivated. So I support Justin on the policy side of the Race Network. And one of the things that I really do find as a motivator is just having good leadership above you, right? And Justin, I'm not saying this only because you're on the call with me, but truly having great leaders who would be able to push you, to motivate you, and to encourage you, especially in this space. It's so important. There were so many times when, I had to call up Justin when you are sort of emotionally drained and you're stuck with a particular problem. If you don't have great leadership above you, it's extremely hard to stay motivated. And I'm extremely lucky to have, leaders like Justin, whom, he's just at the end of the, on the other side of the call, whenever I would like to, call him up on things. The other thing related to that is finding your role models. You need to be inspired, right? And finding your sort of role models within the sort of spaces that you occupy is also a really great way to stay motivated, right? Because they could obviously mentor you, to coach you. And I myself have sourced a lot of mentors and coaches in this particular space to keep me sort of motivated too. And related to that is having your sort of network of supporters, right? Who are your sort of champions, right? Who's within your sort of community who could actually uplift you, right? So, for my own experience, having my very supportive line managers, having the sort of like role models within the sort of system who is supportive of my work and could encourage me and inspire me has been pivotal to staying motivated. You should also take the time, right, to celebrate the wins, however big or small they may be. And I regularly take the time with my team, right, to do that sort of stock take, to ask the team, what was one thing that you were proud of achieving this week, right? And it doesn't even need to be related to, the work that you're doing as a network. It could even just be something that is personal, right? But just setting that sort of precedent for celebrating, right, amongst our community. I don't think we do that enough, to be honest, right? Celebrating the different wins that we have. And finally, staying sort of focused on the long term. This is not something that could be changed overnight. You have to stay focused that you are going into this for the long haul and being realistic about what you can actually achieve, right? With the sort of capacity constraints that you're under. And as Justin alluded to, we're all very busy individuals who are volunteering our time, right? Without getting paid for doing any of this work. So be realistic, right? Um, so related to that in terms of well-being aspects, how I sort of stay sane, right, is, going back to Justin's point, protecting your time is so important. And if you as a leader can't model this, and how would you expect your sort of team members to be able to also have that sort of like ability to protect their own time, right? So you got to practice what you preach. The other thing is, find things that bring you joy, right? And is life giving, and being self aware enough to know what are your sort of triggers, as Justin mentioned earlier, and being attuned to how you're actually feeling. And that is a journey for all of us. And I myself am also on that journey too. You have to take charge of your own well-being. It is your responsibility, right? So for me, I know that if I go on social media, right, I am going to go into these sort of like rabbit holes, and I am going to get sort of super demotivated and depressed, right? So you just need to find that you need to sort of unplug yourself if that is your trigger, right? Know what sort of triggers you. Also find out what recharges you too, right? So I love cooking, I love going out for walks, right? Take that time, slot it into your schedule and diary to make sure that, and I'm actually quite bad at this, right? But really sort of schedule and say, for instance, if you don't have a habit of actually taking lunch breaks, and if you are taking lunch breaks during meetings, I would just advise you, block out that time in your calendar to say, please everyone respect the time that I have. I need that sort of lunch break, right? To have my sort of like well-being and sanity. And on to the breaks point, I just want to say that it is absolutely okay, right, to take a break, in doing anything that is network related. And I've had to sort of like, and I, in fact, I'm taking a step back away from SysRef in the coming months, right, to know that you need to sort of just like give yourself, right, that sort of space and time to reflect. Okay. Don't give yourself such a hard time to say, oh, if I'm not doing this, then everything's going to crumble. Everything's going to fall apart. Right. Again, we're going in for this in the long run, and you don't want to burn out. Right. So know your sort of limits. And finally, when to know that you have to just disengage. Sometimes in the sort of structures and systems that you're in, maybe the stars are not aligned right now in order for you to actually progress on anything that is meaningful or anything that you think is worthy of your time. You sometimes just need to know when you have hit that sort of like brick wall, so to speak. And I've had that sort of moments, a couple of months ago where I said, you know what, I can't be in certain sort of spaces anymore. And I'm actually just going to, take a step back and disengage, right? It is absolutely not your fault, right? Just knowing what your sort of like, expectations are, as well as knowing what is within the realms of possibility within the circumstance that you're in. And I think it's really important to stay, sane.
Thank you. Justin, in your experience, what underlying issues might race network leaders and members be facing, and what can be done to support this? And I know there's a few senior leaders here, so it'd be quite good for them to hear this.
I'll start from the sort of basics, and I think a number of people in the chat have actually already highlighted that. I think there's something around training. let's be honest, some people get involved in either being members of a network or become network leaders because they can see an issue, they can see a problem that they feel that they can hopefully help solve, but that may not mean that they have the tools or techniques to help them deal with that. So I definitely think that there needs to be some sort of like clear training, and that's for any network leader, for any protected or non-protected characteristic. There needs to be some sort of training. There also as well needs to be communication. I've seen and experienced a number of network leaders who have spoken to their members with a level of not intentionally disrespect, but it comes across like that. And that may have either been the tone that they've used, or actually they've not fully listened to what the members wanted. So there needs to be something around communication between people. And I think there's something, and we've alluded to this, and Esther, once again, one of the reasons why I wanted her to be on this particular session today, which is a great session already, because I've also as well relied on Esther, because not only does she have the D&I experience, but she also as well has the lived experience from an East South East Asian view that I wouldn't have. It's the same thing again. Surround yourself with people who can provide different views and aspects. These will help you when, say, for example, one of your members may have a issue or a question which is culturally sensitive, which you may just not be aware of, and be calm and cool and accept that, and then go and seek help from someone who may want to, may know, or may be able to have some synergy in order to help that member. I think the other thing as well with regards to network leaders, and this is probably going to be a theme throughout everything, is time. So very much, once again, I want to repeat about protecting your time. If you're in a role which is a volunteering role, you probably have a very busy day job. The day job has to come first. No organization will turn around and say, great, you did all of this race network stuff, but actually you didn't do the job that we pay you for. So really understand the balance between what you're expected to do in your day job and what you want to do as a volunteer. And then finally, I think some of the other issues can just be the amount of pressure that comes from different directions, depending on the size of your network, depending on the organization that you're in. And I feel, once again, having conversations with other network leaders in your organization is a great starting point, because you'll probably find out that a number of them are also as well suffering with the same underlying issues. And one of the best ways to hopefully overcome or combat some of those issues is to share. So as they say, a problem aired is a problem shared. And that, to me, sometimes I think some network leaders don't realize the power in bringing a collective together and being honest and saying, I don't have all of the answers, but how can we work together to create some solutions?
I'm just going to jump to the final question. So like we're in 30 seconds each. We'll start watch. We understand how challenging it is, especially in the last couple of years being a race network leader. But despite the challenges, what do you enjoy most about the role, Esther?
What I most enjoy about the role is being surrounded, right, as Justin said, by people who are different than you. I've had so many different perspectives thrown at me about race, and I really just relish at that opportunity to engage in difference, right? Similarly, we can't work in silos, and I think, knowing that we are in solidarity with one another, I've met this fantastic community throughout my days in civil service race forum. They're basically my family now. And, Justin, I would equally call you sort of like my second fam, because we've been working on this front for so long. So I've gained friends, right? I've gained friends for life. And also being able to support individuals on their development journey has been something that I relish so much about being able to lead the policy work strand, seeing how my sort of members have been able to flourish into their respective roles has been immensely fulfilling.
And same question to you, Justin.
So I'll keep it really quick, because Esther's already hit a number of points I wanted to hit. But for me, I think it's around being able to solve problems, especially within the D&I space. And I say the D&I spaces because, of course, if you're a person of color, you're more than your leading characteristic. So if there's an issue, say, for example, with regards to representation, and you've worked well as a network to help work with seniors, to help work with HR to change that, and to actually have that senior representation that looks like you and comes from the same background. That is something I've enjoyed doing. I think meeting people, so meeting people like yourself, Javid and Donna, you know, we've spoken, we've got similar interests, but actually coming together, we can create these kind of moments which may help people that I may never meet in my whole life, but they may pick one or two things that either I've said or another panel member has said that actually helps empower them when they go back. So I would say for me, they're probably the things I probably enjoy most is definitely helping people, but definitely also as well solving problems that are affecting our people.